Hello and Happy New Year. Welcome to what I assume is one of the more anticipated annual videos that happens on this channel. This is, as per tradition, the entire Spindat fleet overview. So let's just start with a machine that doesn't really get a whole lot of camera time, isn't on the channel very often, sort of sits behind the curtain. This is my cheap fixed gear single speed bike, a Schwinn Stytes. It's a steel frame, steel fork, loose ball bearing headset, deep, heavy aluminum rims, very reminiscent of the very fixed gear crazed days of the mid 2010s, maybe early 2010s. This thing's just kind of a workhorse and it will inherit parts as time goes on. Next up, and sticking with the fixed gear theme for now, Poseidon FX track lacrosse build. If I remember correctly, we did build this thing last year. Simply put, what it is the aluminum frame from the Poseidon FX track lacrosse frame set, fork swapped out for a carbon adventure fork from a Schwinn. FSA stem to some Easton handlebars with a very, very custom Spindat decal application. No, those decals are not ever going to be for sale. It used to have cyclocross tires on it. I will do that again when I burn these tires out. So right now I'm running a 36 tooth chainring with a 15 tooth cog. I'm happy with that setup. And yeah, that's the track lacrosse bike. This of course is the Guru number 3.7 that we very, very recently built here on the channel. It's recent enough that I don't believe it warrants an entire build breakdown. The inspiration behind getting this thing together is my friend and I, Rob, have been talking about doing a vintage mountain bike ride, and I wanted to have a proper vintage bike built up so that I could go do that and it wouldn't be the rock hopper with drop bars. So this year marked the return back into the fleet of my Felt Compulsion LT50, swapped it to 650B from the 26-inch wheels that were on it with a fork supported in part by Suntour, a different rear shock because the one that was on there was unrebuildable. I couldn't get the damper to do what it was supposed to do. The speed of rebound would not change, so off to a X-Fusion 02 rear shock. Installed in that shock is a set of offset bushings that slacken out the head tube angle a little bit more. Microshift supplied a 1x9 Advent drivetrain for this bike, which I made a video about. Everyone thought it was an ad. It was not. Wheels swapped from 26-inch stands that I built with my friend Nathan many, many moons ago to Hunt Trail Wide Pluses, and I think probably the biggest change is the fact that there's a dropper post on here now. Future plans for this thing, this thing is fairly clapped out. Even though I changed out all the bearings and all the bushings, it still clunks in the rear end, telling me that stuff is just kind of worn out. It lived a hard life. So I'm gonna replace this frame at some point with a custom built steel full suspension frame from Merino down in Lima, Peru. I've said it before and I will happily say it again. This is easily my favorite bike of mine to look at. This is my pretty heavily modified Schwinn Moab 1. I don't think you can even buy this bike anymore. At this stage, it's just a very reasonably light, super reliable hardtail mountain bike for most of the trails around here, or like riding alone when I'm not trying to do anything too crazy. This is kind of the thing I want to go for all the time. I love, love, love riding this thing. It fits good. It's like just light enough. I don't need it to be really any lighter. Maybe I would consider getting a lighter cassette, just because that's an easy, fairly robust piece to be able to put on and save some weight with. But beyond that, I'm like incredibly happy with how this thing is, the way it handles everything. I love this bike. Yeah. I'm super excited for summer so I can ride these grips without gloves on, because good foamies are so good. Yes. The bike that many believe stole the place in my heart that was originally marked for the Lacrosse. This is the 2019 Poseidon X. And yes, maybe there is some truth to that. It's possible that the X certainly took a lot of my attention. And the Lacrosse, yes, I think probably did feel a little neglected when this thing came in to the Spindat life. Tires, I get a lot of questions about tires on this thing. They are 700 by 45. They're big, they're fairly tight in the chainstays. I won't do it again. These tires are mounted onto Velocity blunt SS's, so 35 mil profile. Big rim. Ever since we did the things to fix the fit on it, not long ago at all, I've been pretty satisfied with riding it again. Okay, next bike. The penultimate shed machine for this roundup of the Spindat fleet is the very famous lab rat that is the Lacrosse. Of course, if you're unsure of why it's called the Lacrosse, the history of this thing, go watch the video that's called This Polished and Rod Cyclocross Bike is the old. A lot of my original ideas, commutes, everything centered around this bike. This thing is the Spindat channel. It's always going to be here. I think there would be a mutiny if I said I'm going to get rid of this thing. There'd be a lot of people who'd be upset, even though it doesn't really show its face too much in recent video uploads. And finally, my beloved BMX. There really isn't all that much to say about it. It's been the same thing year after year after year. The biggest changes being it typically loses one rear spoke per year just from doing grinds. I haven't really had to change anything on it. Probably should. I want to ride more BMX. I hope I get to use this more than I ever have in the past, which I should be able to, with this being the job for 2021. So I know what you're thinking, it feels like some bikes are missing. It feels like part of the family's not here. And you'd be right. We have to go inside to go over the last six bikes. So this is, if you're unfamiliar, the office that Angela and I sort of decided made sense if I was going to make the shift to doing YouTube full time. And with that decision, it sort of opened up some space that needed something to be in the backgrounds, but also the opportunity to bring in some of the bikes that I consider maybe a little bit more precious, or ones that don't get quite as dirty, so they could feasibly come inside and not make a mess when they get in here. Not to mention, certainly a lot more secure for some of the bikes that I have, maybe not like a bigger monetary investment in, but like time, effort, like their importance to this channel. So that is the reason that some of these are in here. Others, it's just because they stay relatively clean and they look good in the background. So let's just look at the bikes that stay safer than the ones that are in the shed. Let's start with the vigorelli. So the vigorelli, it has not changed much since the first time that we put it together. It still has the Formula hubs to Mavic Open Pro rims, still has the specialized ramen saddle, the omniums are still on there. The biggest thing that I changed, and I changed this yesterday, was a cog change. Remember when I changed it from a 15 tooth to a 16, everyone lost their mind because they're like, you're only gonna have one skid patch. Well, I just threw a 17 on yesterday, kind of in preparation for this video. I know one thing that people love to bring up from time to time is like, whoa, how long is that stem? I believe it is a 130 mil long stem. Next. Aluminum Schwinn fastback 105 equipped bike, 11 speed stuff. Not much more to it than that. '13, 2014 Specialized Crux Pro. This was meant to be last year, this year's, and like a number of upcoming years cross race bike. Obviously this year there wasn't a whole lot of racing going on. I'm also needing to get a slightly longer hose for the rear brake. So that's been something I've been putting off for a long time. I don't know why. I always forget how much I like riding this bike because I spend so much time on other machines, but this thing is fantastic. Like, it is really, really good. And it is a true shame that I have not taken the opportunity to go race it because I feel like it's probably better than the Crux that I had before. Needless to say, I want to get the proper brake hose on here and then put more miles on this thing. So the LA Sprint, this bike, the fact that I own this thing is almost a little bit off-brand a little bit, but it's also mine almost completely by chance, like fluke that I was able to get it. So when I was working, I used to get up at like 4:30 or 5 o'clock every morning, and I woke up and usually open my phone and go to like Facebook. So this marketplace like buy and sell ad came up for this thing for $1,500. And I looked at what the parts were. I was like, okay, Reynolds carbon wheels, LA Sprint frame set, Dura Ace, NV bar, power saddle. I have to buy this thing. I sent the guy a message. I said, I'm gonna buy this. What's your email? And I sent him the money literally right then at like 5 o'clock in the morning. There's no scenario that I can see in the next like 5 or even 10 years that I could ever afford to actually put something like this together on my own, like piece it together slowly but surely. There's just like no way. So when this came up for the price of the entire thing for less than what these wheels are retail new, that was like my golden ticket. That was the opportunity to get into this like wildly high-end world that I've never been able to really like scratch the surface of. Speaking of flukes, the redwood just happens to be in the house, but I mean, you guys know the redwood. The redwood is fairly bone stock, save for a swapped seat post and saddle, all just for fit. There was a setback post on there for a little while. I never liked that. All I wanted was a 2-bolt seat post so that I could get the seat post angle that I wanted. Slammed, uncut, and swapped to tubeless. The tubeless setup works pretty good with the stock tires. I've just been doing skids every now and again to try and burn them out before I swap them to maybe something a little lighter, more supple, and actually tubeless ready. Plan-wise for this thing, the only real thing that I want to do or change is put on a Rodeo Labs Spork version 3.0 on this and paint it. Maybe some nice brake housing as well, and possibly like a more posh stem. But like this bike, in its essence, doesn't need to be changed. Like the fit doesn't need to be changed. I don't necessarily care so much about the weight. The weight is fine. Yeah, it'll probably stay pretty similar to how it is for a long time to come. It'll just be maintained, ridden hard, put away dirty, washed before I show it on camera again. That kind of life. I just really want it to have a black fork and like a pearl white frame. That's what I want. Kind of saving the best for absolute last. 90-ish 3 specialized rock hopper, of course updated with some of the latest and greatest in drivetrain and handlebar options. A good modern, supple, fantastic tire from Panaracer, the Gravel Kings in 26 by 2.1. 1x10 SRAM drivetrain with a 11 through to 42 cassette. SRAM Rival 1 rear derailleur, Selly Italia saddle, a Pro handlebar, Pro Adventurer, I believe, Data Zero stem, profile design quill adapter. I know everybody gets bothered by the silver here, but there's silver cranks, silver rims, come on. You gotta love a little bit of silver. Paint refinished, polished to absolute shiny perfection, maintaining all of the original patina that this bike had garnered over its years of use. The thing that I love about this the most and that it makes me think of the most is like old NASCARs that had like colored wheels with like all the writing on it. I get that look out of this when I look at it. It's just, for some reason, I associate the two together. And it would seem, based on the amount of views, the interest, the questions I get, that everybody kind of feels the same way. Everybody loves the rock hopper. So much so that Velo Portraits even did a rendering of it, and I printed it and framed it. And therefore, it got the last and the best of show for the Spindat Fleet Roundup. Okay, that's gonna be a wrap on this video. Thanks for spending another year with me and starting this one now, as always, with this upload. All right, that's it. Welcome 2021. Let's see what the year has to bring.